All right, so it's a little past 4 in the morning, and I've been up since about 3:30. I was up warming up my husband's lunch, and I was not able to sleep, so I decided to go through my emails on my phone, and behold, TikTok got the best of me as usual. I got sidetracked, and I came across a video about 17 diapers, and I thought, what the heck is this? So I start reading some of the different videos, and women primarily, if not all, talking about 17 diapers and how nobody should be, shaming another woman for, a mess of diapers when dealing with PPD, postpartum depression, and that sort of thing. So I start watching more and more videos, and suddenly I felt a huge sense of grief come over me. And mind you, I have young children in the home still. I have a 2-year-old daughter, and my house isn't always the cleanest, but I do what I can. And as I continue, going back to the story, as I continue to watch these videos, I start to relate to more and more and more mothers, and it just seemed like I was bombarded with so many emotions, so many feelings, but more than that, just so many memories that just start flushing through my mind, and one after another, I I started to go back to when I had my firstborn, which is where my heart aches the hardest. I was not the nicest mom. I was not the most patient mom. I was not the most understanding mom. I was 18 years old, dating in a year-long relationship, a little over a year actually, going on almost 2 years, but I was 18 years old, about to turn 19, in a relationship with a man who had just turned 41 years old. Yes, you heard that right. I started dating this man a few months after I turned 17, and yes, a lot of people will say daddy issues, and I agree. I agree now. I would say back then I didn't see it. I didn't understand it. How could I? I was just a fucking kid. So in the end, I was dealing with that, and I really didn't have a whole lot of support because my mother, rest in peace, was one of those mothers, old school Mexican mother, very tough love. But she used to believe that, okay, you wanted children? Well, then you go take care of your own children. You wanted kids, you made a choice, then you go take care of your kids. A lot of ignorance and a lot of toxicity behind that, but I'm not here to blame her or point the finger or anything like that. I'm here to just try and bring awareness to others, as a lot of awareness was brought to me. Come here, honey, come sit down next to mommy, or go lay back down. It's 4 in the morning. You have to get up for school in a few hours. Sorry, my 6-year-old was in the hallway. Anyway, there was a lot of toxicity growing up. My mother grew up, it was awful for her too. So she was that parent that, you wanted kids, you raise your own kids. You made that choice, then you deal with the consequence. And I thank her for that, because for the most part, she taught me to be responsible. I have not always been responsible, but she taught me a lot of good things. It wasn't always just bad. I mean, thanks to her, I am the strong woman that I am today, the capable woman, the fighter, the warrior that I am today. And as I'm watching these videos, my heart just became very vulnerable. I became extremely vulnerable because I'm watching the stories and listening to the stories of many, many women of different ages, of different sizes and colors and backgrounds and history and everything in between. And I start to remember how I felt, and I was just a child. I was a few months shy of turning 19 when my firstborn, came home with me from the hospital, and their father, who was much, much older than I was, had already been through a divorce and had experiences with many women and had, had other children with other women, not just me, not just the wife, but, he never took any responsibility. He was a financially stable man, and he did pay for someone to, and he did pay for someone within my family to help me for a couple of weeks after my firstborn came home from the hospital. But I was playing wifey, I was playing mom, and I was just a little girl. A little girl that was not so little, yes, granted, that had been, dealing with life and on her own mostly, since about age 14, but still a child. And today at 43, mother of 6, my eldest just turning 25 a couple of weeks ago, and a 19-year-old and a 7, a 6, a 4, and a 2-year-old. It took TikTok, and I'm educated enough. I don't have a college education, but I'm pretty educated. I like to learn about things. I like to educate myself. I like to become aware of as much as I can. I wouldn't consider myself so ignorant, I guess I could say. But at 43 years old, TikTok educated me like I've never been educated before. TikTok opened my eyes like they've never been opened before. And this is really hard because going back to that brand new mom who was playing wifey, who was playing mommy, he was, doing what she thought or what she knew was to take care of her partner and whatnot, was never taught to take care of herself, wasn't taught self-care. And I've only been learning this for the past 10 years, to be quite honest with you. Bless you, honey. And it's been really, 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 really hard for me today to realize that I had no support. And I'm not blaming this for my shitty parenting, for my poor choices. Yes, I was, I turned 19 years old by the time my child was 3 months. And yes, I was pretty smart and I knew a lot of things, but I didn't know what it was like to be a parent. Clearly, I didn't have the support nor the guidance. And what hit me the hardest, because I live with this guilt in my heart of being abusive psychologically, emotionally to a child, to my child. I dealt with postpartum depression when my baby was about 3 months old. I started to lose it, and an idea flashed through my mind that scared the shit out of me. And my baby was crying uncontrollably, and I was exhausted. I wouldn't sleep because my baby would get up to nurse through the night, and I was learning how to nurse still At 3 months, old, my baby was still nursing and I was learning how to nurse. And I was struggling. I was constantly catching fevers, and I remember my partner at the time, he did what I guess he knew best. I don't know. He'd go and get me soup, but he wasn't there. He was gone during the week and home on the weekend, and I would say half-ass home because he had other priorities. I wasn't one of them. Our newborn wasn't one of them. Not saying that he didn't love our newborn. I'm sure he did. But I was lonely. I was dealing with cheating. I was dealing with raising a new child on my own, per se. Although I had a home, I had a roof over my head, I had a car, I had, money to buy my basic needs and extras if I wanted to. He was a very responsible man in that sense, but still limiting. And in limiting in the support, limiting in our relationship, limiting as a parent. And I didn't understand that at the time. So as I was going through all these feelings and emotions, with my 3-month-old, lack of sleep and all that, I just felt like I wanted to throw my poor child through that window. And I lived on a 2nd-story apartment building, on the 2nd floor apartment, and out my bedroom window was the driveway to the parking lot of that apartment complex. And that idea crossed my mind in a moment of rage, in a moment of exhaustion, which I didn't understand at the time. And it scared the shit out of me when it all happened so quickly. And I thought, oh my God, what are you thinking? Like, no, get that out of your head. But literally my head was just going crazy. And I remember having an appointment to see my doctor. Sit down, honey. Please be quiet. And I had an appointment to see my doctor, and I remember going in exhausted, feeling like I was going crazy. And they do these like little surveys, or questionnaires, not surveys, sorry. Questionnaires where they ask about your mood and your child and that stuff at 3 months postpartum. And I learned then that I was dealing with anxiety and depression. Anxiety and depression. This was the first time ever I had heard of those terms at 19 years old. First time ever. I mean, I come from a very old school Mexican family, and my mom was a tough ass, and my biological father was not around most of the time, and when he had been around, it wasn't the healthiest of relationships, I guess I can put it that way. Although I thought at some point that it was, but it wasn't. I mean, I know better now, right? But I didn't know then because I came out of a lot of toxicity. And so I am explaining to the doctor, hey, doctor, I feel this, I feel that, scared for my child, what I was feeling. And the doctor decides, okay, I'm going to put you on some Paxil. And I thought, okay, fine. I didn't know that, nursing, I shouldn't take certain medications. Doctors tell you this, doctors tell you that. But mind you, he was just an OBGYN. He was not even a psychiatrist or anything like that, or a therapist. He just, you're dealing with, anxiety and depression. And didn't even explain to me it was postpartum depression. Which, thinking back at it now, it's like, how could you not explain to, a teenage mother who is always at all her postpartum appointments by herself, and how could you not guide her or explain things to her? How could you not educate her? And as the years went by, I got these bouts of rage and anger for no reason. And when my little kid, 1, 2, 3 years old, please be careful, guys. 1, 2, 3 years old, was doing what kids do, was doing what little kids do, learning about the world around them, get into a little bit of mischief, because they're trying to figure out and explore the things that surround them, making a mess, spilling things, getting food all over the floor when they're eating. Taking off their diapers, pooped diapers in the middle of the living room floor, poop everywhere. I was screaming at my child as if they were a grown-ass person knowing better. When they didn't, they were just a child learning about the world around them. And I screamed the top of my lungs as if screaming to an adult who had just done absolutely nothing. An adult who had done something horribly wrong. I was screaming at my child that way, and they had done absolutely nothing wrong. I was yelling, I was cussing, I was raging at its worst, to a 3-year-old child. I was spanking my child. But in all of this, that TikTok opened my eyes to this morning at 43 years old, mind you, I never understood why I felt that way. I didn't know that was even, something that continued past, the few days or few months following having given birth. I didn't understand. And postpartum depression can last for years. It was until I was probably in my early to mid 30s that I, became aware a little bit of it. And I thought, okay, that's crazy. And why? Because at that point I was pregnant, having my 3rd child. And I was educating myself, reading, trying to learn, trying to do everything that I didn't do with my first 2, for lack of experience, for lack of guidance, for lack of knowledge, and being educated. And there were times where my little baby, 1, 2, 3 years old, 4 or 5, was being chewed up and spit out by their mother, who was supposed to be protective and understanding and compassionate. And I was none of the above. And I was having these bouts of rage and anger constantly. And I was feeling exhausted mentally and physically, even at that age. And I was so young. I mean, I was 19, 20, 21 years old, 22. And there were times that it was really good and it was okay. And then there were, I would say, more than 80% of the times that it wasn't good. And I tried being on medication. Yes, I did. And the medication worked for a bit for me, for my particular case. I'm not sitting here to talk about, or judge anybody, but it worked for a little bit. But then it wouldn't work after a few weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I felt that rage getting worse, that anger, that frustration getting worse. And I wasn't understanding, so I'd quit taking the medication. I just cold turkey just would stop. And then I feel a little bit normal again. But then the bouts of anger and frustration and rage would come back, and it was really hard. And throughout that, there were several people who were extremely judgmental, and my mother being one of them. Lay off him, he's just a kid, you abusive, whatever you can imagine. But that was her. But it was just from here on out, when she would see me being abusive to my child, because I was abusive, and I take full responsibility for that. And yes, it is real, and yes, it's something that I have guilt and shame over. Like, you have no idea. And it's something that I live with every single day of my life. When I see my child, a grown adult, and they have certain behaviors, and I see the trauma behind it, it's me. I take the blame for that. No, I was not the only one to blame, because I was not the only parent, but I take the blame for that because I caused a lot of that damage. And I feel like I don't have a lifetime to fix it, and I can't go back to make it right. And it's hard. It's really hard. But the worst part learning today from TikTok was that I was alone, that I was judged and I was shamed for so many things that I did wrong as a parent to my new child, to my 1-year-old child, to my 2-year-old child, to my 3-year-old child, my 4, my 5, my 6-year-old child. And I went through postpartum depression. I dealt with mood disorders for a long time from that point on. And I didn't realize what I realized today. I was fucking alone. I didn't have someone there to explain to me what was happening with my body, the changes within. All I had was judgment, judgment, judgment. But nobody stopped and said, hey, let me give you a break. You need to rest. Let me give you a mental break. And my mom's excuse, looking back at it now, was, you need to rest. You just had a baby. And here I was with a newborn baby, making dinner for my partner and driving his lunch to him, to his business, Monday through Friday, to make sure that he was well taken care of. I was not taken care of, but I was taking care of him, and being a mom, and being 19, 20 years old. So in the process, I did a lot of outrageous things. We were on and off for a few years, and I was frustrated because he wouldn't commit like I wanted him to, like I thought he would. I was young. I didn't know a lot, and I didn't know better. He was 41. He knew better. He was a grown fucking man. I was still a fucking child, thinking that I was a grown-ass, person, but I was not. I was a child. And my mother would get so upset. You just had a child 2 weeks ago. How are you going up and down those stairs? Remember I said I lived on the second floor apartment. So she says, you should not be up and down carrying those heavy grocery bags, carrying that car seat. You just had a child. You need to get rest, and you need to let yourself heal. And a lot of it's in our culture, and you have a child, and women aren't supposed to shower, to prevent catching some kind of illness, sick, cold, whatever, I don't know. Or you're not supposed to shower, and you definitely should not be picking up anything, lifting anything, and you shouldn't be having sex for at least 40 days. And so that was not the case for me. I was 2 weeks postpartum, and I'm giving in to my partner's desires, and he's not taking care of me. I was stitched because my child was big, and they tore me, nearly 8-pound baby, and I was just 18 years old when they were born. So I had stitches that, hadn't fully been removed, and still at 2 weeks old, and I'm having sex 2 weeks postpartum, 2 weeks just past having my child. I'm walking up and down stairs with bags of groceries, because at that point, the person who he had paid to help me out was no longer getting paid to help me. And so I wasn't getting that help. So I'm going to the grocery store. I was young and I felt strong and I was capable and I've always been a very strong person, but I I was going up and down those stairs with stitches already starting to have intimacy with my partner, and I was carrying a car seat with a baby that was, over 8 pounds heavy, plus the weight of that car seat. And I was driving around and I was walking around and I was cleaning my house and I was making lunch and I was dealing with a baby. And my partner, who could have taken time off of work, because he was not going to lose money if he didn't go to work, and he had the possibility to say, hey, you know what, I'm not coming into work for the next 2 weeks or the next month, or maybe work half a shift. I get it. Most people cannot afford that. He was able to afford that. I, asked, stay with me, help me, just be my companion. And he just refused to. And I remember I would cry about that to him. And I got to go to work. I have a business to run. Not even the day that my child was born did he stay home from work. He had my own brother drive me to the hospital because I have to leave to work. I've got things to do. And he didn't go into work till about midday. My brother drove me to the hospital and was there with me until my mother arrived. And hours later, he decided to come because I was in a nearly 24-hour labor. But, those were a lot of the things that I went through, and a lot of people had a lot to say, a whole lot to say. And not many people had a whole lot of willingness to help me. And I know part of it is that they too didn't understand and weren't aware, and they too were ignorant, as ignorant as I was. But this is real. This shit is fucking real. And you don't suffer postpartum for a day or two or a week or two after having your child. This can go on for years. And there are days today at 43 years old that I feel that I'm still dealing with postpartum depression. I have a 2-year-old baby, and I have my other children, my 7-year-old, my 6-year-old, my 4-year-old. And so with that, it's really hard for me to make sense of all of this. And I just felt the urge to make this video that's gone on for quite some time. But it's a story of a real woman who once became a mother while being a child in a relationship with a grown man. And I had no support. Most of us women come from these type of toxic backgrounds and upbringings. And a lot of us women, young women, do end up in relationships with toxic older men. I know my case was a little more extreme, but there are others. I'm not the only woman or the only young lady that was in a relationship with a man much older, or in, my specific situation. I used to believe that I was, and then I understood that I wasn't, and I haven't been the only one for ages. But I did not know what self-care was. I did not understand. All I ever knew was to give, and care for others, but not myself. And I became a very abusive mom at a very, very early age. By the time I was 24 years old, my baby was now 6 years old, and I was giving birth to my second child. And I do remember being a lot more patient with my second child, a lot more passive with my second child when they made a mess, when they spilled things. But I still would have bouts of rage at times with my second child. And I was probably just starting to recover from postpartum depression from my first child when I gave birth to my second. So I went through you know, many, many years of, dealing with mood disorders, some caused by having children and the changes in my body and not knowing that I needed to do this and I needed to do that and, eat better and go here, ask for help. I mean, I pretty much, it was hard for me to ask for help because I learned early on that if I asked for help, it wasn't there. I was always the one giving it, but not the one receiving it. And so I learned to just tough it out, write it out, don't be a crybaby, and, keep moving, keep moving. And, it was very difficult. Looking back at it now, it was definitely not easy. It was definitely wrong. And at the time, I didn't see it and I didn't understand it. At the time, I couldn't see it and I couldn't understand it because I was so young and uneducated in that sense, and from a toxic upbringing with toxic parents, a toxic family. And I'm 43 years old, and it just hit me that I was dealing with so much and I had no clue. I was dealing with so much and I was alone with a child that I was abusive to, mentally, physically, emotionally. I would hurt my child, and yet I loved my child. And how could I hurt my child when I loved my child? How could you be so abusive to a little kid because they made a mess like that one, like all that, all the mess. This is nothing, this is, not bad, but how could I be abusive to a little kid for playing, for eating, for talking, or at least learning, attempting to learn to speak properly, or just for discovering the world around them? Like, how could I have been that horrible person, and yet I was? And my child has had it hard because, the trauma is real. The trauma that my child went through because of me is real. Had I had support, had somebody educated me or guided me or just said, hey, you know what? It's okay. Let me cook dinner for you today. Or let me help you change a few of those diapers. No one did. Nobody did. No one. People would just make their comments and make their judgment for the shitty parent that I was. Nobody said, hey, you know what? You need a break. Go out and take care of yourself. Go out and walk on your own by yourself at the park. Go get yourself a manicure and pedicure. Go take a fucking 5-hour nap, 3-hour nap, 2-hour nap, whatever. Hey, I brought you something healthy to help bring those, vitamins and, essential minerals your body needs so it can sustain itself and it can function because you've got a lot on your plate. My partner, during that period, never said, hey, you know what, don't bring me lunch. They expected that lunch Monday through Friday. Did they need it? No, because they could afford it to eat out every single day if they wanted to. And they could have done a lot of things different, but they didn't. My family, those around me, they too could have offered a lot of help, but Some had an excuse while you choose to go up and be running around taking care of that man instead of taking care of yourself. Well, fuck, teach me how to take care of myself, because all I've ever seen is you take care of somebody else. You take care of your man, but not take care of yourself either. So how am I to know how to take care of myself when I've never seen a good role model? I've never seen you take care of yourself. I always saw you put the needs of others, especially your partner. Oh God, I have so many things. Like, my head is chaos right now because so many memories that are heartbreaking. And the worst of it all is the pain that I put my kid through. This is real. This is so real. Don't shame people. Don't point the finger. Don't judge them. If you can't be there to help them, don't judge them, because that's not helpful. That isn't doing anybody any good. Not you, not them, and especially not that newborn baby or that 3-year-old or that 6-year-old child. I have, at 43 years old, so much patience. And I talk about it with my eldest, who's 25 now. And just yesterday they came to visit me. You know, we've been on a roller coaster of a relationship because of all the damage I did. And that's been hard. But just yesterday, you know, we were talking about how I'm a better parent in most ways because of the experience I had. But it never dawned on me until this morning. I'm a better parent because I'm older, I'm wiser, I've had enough experience to know. But sometimes I still have those moments of rage, you know, those moments of anger for no reason or for the stupidest shit. And I have to check myself because there's no one around to check me. And when there are other people around, the only one who checks me is my 25-year-old and steps in. They probably don't do it in the most intelligent way because there is so much pain there. But they don't stay quiet. They tell me, don't talk to them like that. You can't spank a child, or you can't this, or you can't that. And they are right. You know, they're educated. They have a college education, thank God, one that I could have only dreamed of. And they educate me so much. And when the little ones, you know, are acting up and I get into like, hey, stop your crap, you know, whatever, start cussing or whatever. Hey, take a breather, take a chill pill. That's what my 25-year-old tells me. Calm down, let me deal with it. Let me deal with it. And then I stop for a second and I'm like, yeah, my kid loves me no matter what I put my kid through. And they're taking care of mommy when mommy didn't take care of them when they needed it. And they're taking care of their younger siblings. Oh, fuck. By stopping me in my tracks when I do get upset and angry for things that don't matter. Yes, I am a better parent, but I'm not a perfect parent. So, you know, I just wanted to get that out there. I wanted to clarify that because I am a much, by far, better parent today to the littles than I was to the older ones. But I still deal with a lot of this. And there are some days that my body just aches and I just don't want to get out of bed. There are days that I just don't want to clean my house, and I detest. It's, you know, a cluttered, messy, dirty house. So I go to my old ways and I exhaust myself. My current husband now, in this moment in time, he is a really good father. But he also wasn't always a good father, nor was he a good husband. For the longest time, for the probably first 8 years of my marriage, he was not a good person either. He was as toxic as I was, as toxic as they come. But I'm thankful that he now helps me change diapers, helps me clean, helps me discipline. I mean, helps me in everything they can. They go to work at 3 in the morning, come back home, and they're like round the clock with me. The kids are coughing in the middle of the night, and I'm snoring away because I'm just exhausted. He won't wake me up anymore. He'll go take care of it before. Well, I'm not even going to get into that, but most women don't have that support. A lot of them can't afford their husbands to take time off work because that's their bread and butter. They don't pay their bills. They don't have a way of living. And I get it. But you know what? Still ask for help. Even if 10 times you're told no, still ask for help. Try. Try your hardest. Don't be hard on yourself. Be more loving to yourself because you deserve it. Those changes within you, if you're one of those women watching this video, those changes within you, they're something that sometimes you can't control, but with the right support, you can make better. You can make bad situations better. And if the house has to stay dirty, fuck it. Let it be dirty. You know, you're changing your child. You're feeding your child. If you ain't taking a shower in 2 or 3 days, that's okay too. You're just being a good mom. A good mom. When everybody else tells you that you're not being a good mom, you are being a good mom. You're being a great mom because you don't sleep, because you want to be able to hear that child when they cry. I know, I went through that. You move the crib beside your bed, or you bring your child into your bed so that you could feel their every move because you're afraid that, if you can't hear them breathe, they're going to die of SIDS. Or, you're not going to hear them when they're hungry, or you're not going to know when they have a stinky. It's hard being a parent. It's hard being a new mom. It's hard going through those changes in your body that are sending all these, mixed signals, misfired signals into your brain. And one day you're so happy and ecstatic that you have this child that you've longed for. And even if you didn't long for a child that now is your world, and the next moment you're asking yourself, why am I so angry? Why do I just want to, hurt someone or break something? And that is postpartum depression. And educate yourself. Don't wait on others to do it. Give yourself that much love and educate yourself on what that is, because when you do, you're going to be kinder to yourself. You're going to be more forgiving to yourself, because nobody else will be as forgiving as you will be forgiving to yourself. I promise you that. Everybody's going to judge you. Everybody's going to have an opinion, because just like an asshole, we all have one. But no one's going to be kinder to you than you are to yourself. And no one's going to treat you with kindness if they don't see you treat yourself with kindness first. So educate yourself. Please read a book, read an article, whatever, and learn what it is to have postpartum depression and how that can become anxiety and all these other mood disorders, because they all go hand in hand. Not one goes without the other, I promise you. In 25 years since I've become a mom, I've learned that they go hand in hand. It's hard. It's really hard.